Recent news. Shout out to young Cam Hildreth verbally committing to Wake Forest. I think the first guard to go directly from the UK to a high major program. I think Sam Netta said on his Hoops
Yeah.
Fix podcast. But yeah, big move. Yourself as someone who played at Washington, another high major program. Just talk a little about the experience, I guess, in playing at a high major program, and for people who may not be familiar with the tiers in college basketball, just a bit about the difference between, say, a high major program, a mid major program, a low major program.
So for Cam, obviously it's a great opportunity. I know it doesn't officially count as a high major program, but I need to give a shout out to Duke Forbes, Jermaine Forbes,
Yeah,
because he went from the UK and ended up at Gonzaga. Obviously, it counts as a mid major, but obviously everybody that knows Gonzaga knows it's really a high major program.
yeah,
But yeah, it's a huge accomplishment for Cam. I'd spoken to him a few times during his process, even pre-COVID, about this coming season. My old assistant coach, or my old head coach, sorry, at prep school, has gone back to prep school at South Kent. So I wanted to see, because they're obviously a high class, NEPSAC Class A school. Obviously, it's good competition, and I didn't know how his recruitment was going at the time or where he was getting looked at. But I was just checking, because as I always do, kind of with like the guys that go to high majors or got opportunities to go to high mid majors or whatever, if they wanted to go to a year for prep school or something to get accustomed to American style before going to college or anything like that. But he was, which is good. Obviously, his parents were content in him staying here and finishing off his college A levels and stuff, and making sure that he had at least that baseline of education here before he left for the States. And obviously, his talent was going to be able to get him. And then once I had a full conversation with him, we started talking about, I had to keep quiet, but some of the schools that was recruiting him at the time and where he was looking at. And it was a whole plethora of high major schools. So I wasn't really worried about him. So when I heard that it was officially Wake Forest, like I was happy, I was pleased for him. He actually did the same thing I did and committed basically the end of his junior year in high school. So he's got another obviously year of school and basketball before going to school. So it's nice to have that kind of out the way, and it's not something that you're thinking about and going through always during your last year before you go to college. But yeah, it's an amazing opportunity. It's an amazing experience going to a high major school. Washington obviously was in the Pac-10 at the time, Pac-12 now, and we had 40,000 students. So like the student section, the people at the games, we sat like 12.5K in our arena. Like it's an amazing experience. He was going to have all the support, all the off and on court, sorry. But that's what the biggest thing is. From even listening to the Hoops Fix interview, he knew what he wanted, the talent he has, and the opportunities that was thrown at him. Even whether it be going to Europe or playing in some other stuff, like it was definitely something that he knew what he wanted, and he wanted to play college basketball. So I think he's in a great position for himself. It's going to be tough. It's not easy. Even myself, I did 3 years in the States in high school before going to school, going to the University of Washington, and it was still a shock for me, for my system, the level of intensity, what the coaches demand from you. It's not always as easy as you think it's going to be. As most people know, like my college career, I had a couple of quiet years, my first 2 years, and then kind of burst onto the scene midway through my junior year. And then obviously I had the senior year that I had. Sometimes it's different for bigs than it is for guards. So I can't necessarily say it's going to be the same for him. But when it comes to guards, there's going to be a whole bunch of dogs on that court. And the one thing I like about Cam's game is he doesn't back down from anybody. And he's definitely going to be able to go in there and have some battles with teammates, because at first it's going to feel like they're not your teammates, because you're all fighting for minutes, you're all fighting for whatever it may be, because at the end of the day, it's all these kids' dreams to make it to the NBA, to make it as a professional player. So they're going to be battling like you're not teammates. And then once the first preseason starts to settle down, and then you start getting into running plays and learning who you're playing with and this and the rest, then obviously you kind of build friendships and become more a team. And that's what he's got to look forward to. it's as I said, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a battle, and it's high major, so every game is going to be a battle. Wake usually have a solid non-conference schedule, but then especially once you get into the ACC, you know it's going to be wars. Yeah, you know it's going to be animal. You playing the Dukes and the Carolinas and I think Louisville's in the ACC now, like all the big schools. Yeah,
Syracuse.
So Syracuse, yeah. So it's gonna be a war zone, which isn't always the case. And I'm not saying it's not the case for him, but hopefully, whatever the head coach has told him, his role is expected to be, that it follows through, and it is that from day one, because I know he wanted to go somewhere where he's going to play right away. Everything is always said, but you got to prove it on court, and as long as he proves it and handles his business in practice, I'm sure he'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be fine as well. You know, obviously I played against him last year in Division 1. You know, a real talent. You forget he's, you know, he would have been, what, 17 last year. Yeah, you know, he doesn't really play like a 17-year-old, you know. He was handing out 40-point games in Division 1, you know, which, you know, obviously is not the best league in the world, but it's still, you know, it's a grown man's league. And he was doing what he was doing. So I can't wait, you know. I'm going to definitely catch some Wake Forest games next year. You know, they're playing my Duke Blue Devils, so I definitely look forward to that one. So I want to touch on something that, you know, they spoke about shout out to Sam Nita, but on this podcast with Cam and his dad, you know, they touched on, I guess, the different routes that Cameron could have taken. Obviously, there was the offers in Europe, the BBL route, but ultimately decided to go to the States. Let's rewind. Let's say you were 17, 18 again. You know, on one hand, you know, you've got your offers from in the States, and on the other hand, you know, you've got an offer to go to Europe. Do you think, you know, obviously knowing what you know now, you would have still taken the college route, or would you have gone the European route?
For me personally, I think I probably would have went the European route. It's different for different people. For Cam and his situation, college basketball was something, as he explained, is something that he really looked up to and something that he really looked forward to being a part of. For me, the college route, I'm not saying that it's not for everybody, but I think necessarily it was the only route I knew. I didn't have offers from Europe, or I didn't have this, I didn't have that. Like, I was given an opportunity. All I'd known, all I'd seen is guys that have finished playing for the Top Cats Brixton and gone to the States. Like, that's what it was. It was a factory. Like, finish here, go to the States, prep school, JUCO or D1, D2 even. But guys were just getting out of playing for the Top Cats junior level and then going over to the States. So that's all I knew. But for me, I think honing my skill set with a European flair, but with the athleticism as if I was an American or whatever, I think it would have helped me big time. I think it would have been easier. Ended up being my draft class, but my draft was literally the last, there's 60 picks, so the last 20 to 15 picks was literally all Euros, guys that people had never heard of, that were playing in Europe. It was a 2011 draft. But to me, it's if you're able to have the skill set that the Europeans teach you, but you have athleticism of an American, so you show that you could play in the NBA and, you know what I mean, play with that fast pace and with those type of athletes, you now become a bigger fish in a smaller pond. And that's how I look at it now, 10 years of professional and seeing what what teams look at, what they take, and this, that, and the rest. And a lot of it's to do with hype, especially in the NBA. It's a lot to do with potential and a lot to do with your hype. So you see guys that are top, you know, high school players that not necessarily end up being a one and done, but not necessarily had the best year in college, but it's because of their hype and being a McDonald's All-American and what they could potentially do in the NBA. And I think that in hindsight, if I knew this, I don't know what, 15 years ago it is now, when I was leaving London, not even 15, maybe longer than that, but when I was leaving London, that potentially being a bigger fish in a smaller pond, whether it be in Europe, somewhere in Europe, Spain or France or Germany or somewhere, Italy, where you get these academies where you can go to Europe and have offers, and then you also start making money earlier as well. At the end of the day, it's all about becoming a pro. Obviously, you love the game, and no disrespect to anybody to it, but yes, all these guys that are thinking about becoming pros, they're not thinking about necessarily about, oh yeah, I want to go to a 4-year college and get my degree and do X, Y, and Z. They're trying to make it to the NBA, or they're
Yeah.
trying to be a pro in Europe, and they're trying to do this. I'm not saying that life after basketball is not needed, or that you can't finish your schooling, or that it's not helpful to have a degree. Of course it is. However, when you're thinking about it as a child or as a young adult, you're thinking about how is the best way to make money or make basketball my living for X amount of years. And these deals that you're potentially signing as a 16, 17, 18-year-old will take money. It was funny, I have a conversation with Ryan. He's posting stuff talking about, yeah, the start of year 14 and stuff like that. And I'm like, bro, year 14, like you're 3 years younger than me. Like, it's crazy to me. You know what I mean? But obviously he's gone a different route, gone through playing in Spain and stuff like that, where his professional career actually started when he was 16, 17, 18, whereas his mine started when I'm 22. Mine started